Hello and welcome to Studio 10 at Twilight Community Group Kilkenny in our new programme, People in Profile. Here today we have our first guest, former Mayor of Kilkenny and Councillor Peter Chap Cleere. Hi Peter, how are you?
How are you going? Lovely to be here.
Or do you mind if I refer to you as Chap?
No, Chap. Everybody calls me Chap. Yeah, my father is Peter, my grandfather is Peary, so when I came along I was the young chap in the family, so everybody calls me Chap, so Chap is what I go by.
So Chap, could you tell us a bit about your youth, your hobbies and your interests?
Yeah, well I suppose, look, as a young lad growing up, I'm from a rural place in Kilkenny, a small little village. It's not even a village really, just a small rural area called Skeoch-Forstein. It's in the parish of Graignamanagh, about 15 miles outside Kilkenny City. And as a young lad, I just lived a normal, really happy childhood. Loads of sport, loads of just getting out, walking through the fields, and just your traditional Irish rural upbringing. And we're really lucky that really good parents and a really good community. And just had a fantastic childhood with great family and great friends. And they're what kind of, I suppose, enabled me and all of my friends to go on and be whatever they wanted to be, you know.
Great. And you mentioned you love sports. Were you into GAA?
Yeah, GAA was my first love. Massive hurling and camogie person. And obviously would have played with my club for years, the whole way up along. And I've been fortunate enough to represent my county as well. So hurling is something that is in the fabric or the genes of most Kilkenny people. Not all, but most. And everybody knows somebody that has a huge affinity with it. So I loved GAA. I loved hurling growing up. It was my passion for many, many years. It still is. I'm still involved, but not obviously as a player anymore. I'm just on the sidelines now, roaring on and shouting on.
And do you miss hurling, just bucking the ball around, playing at a club? Yeah,
well, I suppose, look, I'd still be pucking around at home the whole time. I have 4 daughters, we'd be pucking around the whole time with them. So, like, once you've been reared with a hurling the ball, it's just something that you just naturally do, like cycling a bike. It's just something you'll always have. It's always there. I'd love to be able to play more competitively, but there aren't enough hours in the day sometimes to get to do it. So I miss the camaraderie and the crack in the dressing rooms. But I don't miss, I suppose, training on a dark January evening when it's slashing rain and there's mud everywhere. They're the days you're happy you're not still playing, you know.
And you mentioned you have 4 daughters. Are they following their father's footsteps? GAA, camogie?
Yeah, absolutely. They're all playing camogie, every single one of them, and they absolutely love it. My daughters are 14, 12, 10 and 8. So they're quite close in age together, and they all represent their club. I was actually at a blitz this morning. Camogie, my youngest one, was playing a blitz under 8. So they love it. They have the bug. And I always wanted, it was really important to me that when I had kids, that I really wanted to instill a love of hurling into them. It doesn't bother me if they don't play at a high level or anything like that at all. I just want them to love the game and love the sport and love everything that it represents. And thankfully all 4 of them really, really love the game, and they love being part of it, love being involved. And that's enough for me.
Great. And are you into music?
Yeah, I love music. Look, as a young lad growing up, you know yourself, it's I was big into bands like Counting Crows and Matchbox 20 and all those type of bands as a young kid growing up. So I always loved music. Always had a passion for music. And yeah, as I said to you there, I look at the music now versus the music when we were growing up with the likes of Oasis and all that. It's just completely changed. But that's just the world that we live in with technology and the enhancements that has made. I've been more old school in terms of, you know, one man and his guitar and his songs. I love that. So nowadays, I suppose the likes of Dermot Kennedy and those kind of guys are lads I really, really enjoy listening to.
And what would you say was the real soundtrack of your youth?
Oh, good question. Soundtrack of my youth. Probably Mr. Jones by Counting Crows.
Oh, yeah.
A big Counting Crows fan. 2 major albums, August and Everything After, and I think Recovering the Satellites were the 2 big albums when I was a young kid growing up in the early 90s especially. So those 2 albums would have been really on repeat. But Mr. Jones was the big song at the time, so that's one I love. And even now, if I hear that song, it just brings back so many great memories of my youth and my childhood. I love it. And
I understand that you're quite a good pal of our fellow volunteer here at Twilight Studio 10, Liam.
Absolutely. Liam, a great buddy of mine growing up, Liam. And again, if I spoke about musicians, I talk about an absolutely talented musician, really good player, really good singer. Brilliant guy, and Liam would have been in bands growing up as well, and we were all jealous of Liam because he was so good at music. He was really talented, he was really good player, but an unbelievable singer as well. So yeah, look, I palled around with Liam for many years, a great guy, great friend, and delighted to see him do so well in results here.
Yeah, and do you play any instruments?
Just a small little bit of guitar, not at any decent level at all. I'm self-taught, probably copied looking at the likes of Liam when I was a young guy growing up. And you see your friends playing music and you just want to play a little bit along with them, you know. So I play poorly, and every now and again I'll play a few songs, but I'm not great. Don't ask me to. Don't bring out a guitar now and start playing. Yeah. I wouldn't be comfortable with that, but I just like to mess around and play around a bit, you know.
So would you consider that a little hobby of yours after hours?
Yeah, a little hobby just to pluck away every now and again. I don't get to spend as much time at it as I'd like because I'm so busy with life, with saying with the kids and with their interests now as well, because they're obviously all doing their sport and their swimming and their dancing and their camogie and their horse riding and whatever else they're doing. So my interests have become their interests, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I just don't have enough time to play as much as I'd like at the moment, you know.
Chap, before we get into more political and serious matters, I'm wondering if you could give our viewers a little insight of what inspired you to become a local representative of your political party.
Oh, that's a very good question. And I suppose when I was a young kid growing up, and Liam will testify to this, I definitely had no interest in politics as a 14, 15, 16-year-old, 20-year-old. If I did, I wouldn't have been pulling as hard in the hurling pitch as I did. I definitely would have been taking it a little bit easier. But I had no interest in politics really growing up. It wasn't something that appealed to me or had any interest in at all. And I suppose where I first became interested or became actively involved, community is very important to me. And it's something that I never even realised, but it was just always inbuilt in me, the importance of community and that sort of stuff. But when my second daughter was born, Emily, she was born premature. She was 7 weeks premature when she was born. She was in the special baby care unit in St. Luke's Hospital in Kilkenny. And if any of your viewers know people that have had premature babies, it can take be 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It takes a while for them to get released on occasion. So she was 26 days in hospital, and we brought her home on the 26th day, which was brilliant. And I suppose when we brought her home, I decided I wanted to do something here for charity. So I said, I was so grateful for all the brilliant nurses and doctors in St. Luke's and the fantastic care she got. And I said to my wife, look, I want to do something for charity. So we looked at the traditional stuff, the skydiving and the bungee jumping and all that sort of stuff. And then I just seen a thing, a marathon, 26.2 miles. And she'd been in hospital for 26 days. Oh, yeah. So 26 miles, 26 days. I was going to run a mile for every day she was in hospital. So I decided to run a marathon. Now, you're probably wondering, where is this leading into the politics part? This was in 2011. There was a general election in Ireland in 2011. And when I was running the roads, all of the posters were going up on the telephone poles. And I was training maybe 5-6 days a week. And every day I was running past these posters, vote for such a person or vote for such a person. And it just really instilled subconsciously in my head and in my heart, I'm going to get involved in this. I want to make a difference. I want to make a change. And from that then, and from doing the marathon, I just got involved then with my local political party, Fianna Fáil. And from there, got the nod to run in the local elections and was elected and have never looked back since.
Great. And could you tell us a bit about your experience as the former mayor of Kilkenny? Yeah,
so look, I was very fortunate because I'm from a rural area. Usually the mayors of Kilkenny City normally are domiciled within the city, but I actually live out the country. So it's very unusual for a rural person to become mayor. But there was a change of municipal districts in 2014, and it was called Kilkenny City East and West. So the municipal district went from Graignamanagh into Kilkenny City and over to Winegap and Callan on the far side and everything in between. And I suppose once I got elected, I was working really hard, and I was very, very lucky that I was elected unopposed as mayor. It was just the most amazing whirlwind year of my life. It's a once in a lifetime experience. I loved every minute of it. But like, you're working 16, 17, 18-hour days. It really is full on. But I loved it, and it was a brilliant experience, and it was such an honour for me to represent my county and my city and my community at home. So very, very proud, and something that I'll take to my grave as one of the proudest achievements I've ever had.
And while you were making up your mind about running for the mayor position here in Kilkenny, what were your views and the things that you really wanted to change? You were thinking to yourself, I can change that, I want to change that here in Kilkenny.
Yeah, the mayoralty in Kilkenny is you're quite strict and quite rigid in terms of the actual powers that you actually have. A lot of the duties and the tasks are actually quite ceremonial. But notwithstanding that, there were a couple of things that were huge on my agenda when I was mayor. One of them that I really, really tried to spearhead was the advancement of the Technological University of the South East. I mean, the South East region did not have a technological university. We did Trojan work in my term as mayor to really highlight that, put it on the agenda. I happened to be chairman of Kilkenny Carlow Education and Training Board at the same time, so I had two hats on. So I was really able to drive that agenda. Now, thankfully, it's taken 3 or 4 years to get to that stage, but thankfully, we now have a technological university of the South East, so that parents and families who reside in the South East, you know, their kids can now get a degree, a third level qualification, a university degree in their locality. If they want to go to Dublin or Galway, that's fine, but they can actually get it at home as well. And I suppose the next piece of the jigsaw for that then is that we will get a faculty of scale in Kilkenny as well. So at the moment, the main faculties are in Carlow and Waterford, and we want to promote and ensure that Kilkenny gets a faculty that will ensure that number one, we bring students into the town and create vibrancy economically, but also that option is there and that career pathway is there for people that, particularly in things like design and agribusiness, there are certain areas that Kilkenny is renowned for, that it has a huge heritage and history in. So those are the areas that we really want to focus in on. So that was a big one for me, was the education piece. It's something that's close to my own heart. So that was probably the big piece.
And even changing this topic a small bit,
yep.
But in the recent months, we've been experiencing a lot of kind of anti-refugee, anti-houses for refugees protests here in Ireland, especially in Dublin and places like that. But could you share kind of your opinion or your viewpoint on the policies regarding asylum seekers and refugees? Yeah,
the first thing I suppose to say is what has happened over the last number of years in terms of the scale and the volume of people coming into the country is unprecedented. I mean, I think I read somewhere recently there was 72,000, I think, Ukrainians have come into Ireland since the catastrophic events that have happened over there. I mean, that's bigger than the population of County Carlow. So, you know, it's a huge number of people coming in. However, there's a couple of things for me that are really, really important. I think there has been a real difficulty in terms of the communication piece, that government have kind of definitely failed the people, all of the people of this island, whether they've been here all their lives or they've just come in. So definitely there's a communication piece in terms of what needs to happen or where people are going to be located, etc. And I suppose the second big thing for me is we're in a situation where the people that are coming over from Ukraine, we'll use as an example. I mean, those people, I've spoken to some of those people. I mean, their villages have been bombed. You know, their brothers and sisters have been killed. You know, these people are on the floor. And Irish people, for decades and for years, had to leave our country here and seek solace in places like England and Canada and America and Australia to get work. And we know how difficult it was for us in terms of when we went over and not being wanted in certain situations. So I think it's really important that us as a country, we give a really big Céad Mhíle Fáilte to anybody that comes into our country, whether it's by choice or whether it's they're actually been forced to flee because of the catastrophic situations that their country is in. So I think we need to be very, very welcoming of people. We need to be very, very conscious of the backgrounds and the situation that they're coming from. That's not just a case of, oh, I live in an area, you know, I hear this argument a lot that, oh, look after our own first. Yeah. You know, well, I'm Irish, whatever, and let's give all the house to the Irish people and then we look after. But like, you have to remember the background that some of these people are coming from is completely different to the background that the Irish person who's maybe waiting to get housed as well. It's not that we don't want the Irish person housed, we want everybody housed, but it's the communication piece and it's that welcoming piece. And I know a huge amount of work has been done, but there's definitely an awful lot more can be done and should be done, in my view anyway. But again, it's the frightening thing is the sheer volume of people that have come in such a short period of time, and the lack of communication. All those things coming together has kind of created the perfect storm and led to a lot of nasty and you know, definitely people that aren't representing me in terms of what's happening up in Dublin in certain instances, stuff like that. So that's not reflective of what I'm hearing on the ground of Irish people. But you will always get people in every country and every area and every community that will want a certain thing, but it wouldn't be my view.
Yes, and you mentioned housing there,
Yeah.
and even looking at the population of over 5 million, and the economic growth, especially last year of 12.2%, I think. What would you like to see as a next step for the government in the housing crisis?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And again, the reality is we need to build more houses, and there's no way of getting away from that at all. I mean, in the peak in 2007, 2008, prior to the economic crash that we felt before the IMF came in, Ireland was building 83,000 units of houses in the year, right? Last year, I think we built 36,000. This year we'll probably be about 40,000. So we're building way more than been done over the previous 10 years, but we're still only at half the level that we were at before the economic crash. So we absolutely 100% need more houses to be built. It's as simple as that. But again, we're in the eyes of a perfect storm here, because we've got the people that are on the housing list, the social housing list in Ireland at the moment, but also you've got people coming in from abroad and that are seeking asylum over here. And in addition to that, then you've people that aren't on a housing list, that are young couples maybe that are working and they can't afford to get on the property ladder. And because it's gone so expensive, and the restrictions that are there from a central bank guideline can make it quite difficult. So there's a myriad of things at play, but it's purely economics as far as I can see. It's pure supply and demand, and there isn't enough supply there at the moment to meet the demand that's there, and that's not going to change for probably another 2 or 3 years at least. There's loads of activity happening, there's loads of works in the pipeline, but people need to see these things, and they need to see them now. So people are getting frustrated, and I get that. I understand that. So there's, as I said, there's been a lot done, but we need to ramp it up and make sure that we have the workforce that can do it. That be it the social voluntary housing bodies or be builders that are actually building the houses, and then obviously the demand is there, because the proof is in the pudding in terms of the number of people that are crying out for housing.
Yeah, and even here at Twilight Community Group, we have various volunteers from different backgrounds, ethnical, cultural, but also we work with the Erasmus Plus program. Are you familiar with the Erasmus Plus program, and what is your view on it?
Well, for me, I'm a huge believer in the Erasmus Plus program, and like to really integrate and get a sense of a culture of a place, and to get greater understanding and learning of a community or a nation or whatever. I think it's so important that the Erasmus piece, the Erasmus Plus program is there. I think whilst again it's a very strong program, I think we need to encourage even more people. I'm a huge believer in it. I'd love to see double or triple the number of people that are on the Erasmus programs, going both ways, coming into Ireland and going out to other cultures and experience that and coming back in. So for me, it's something that that probably isn't as successful as we need it to be, for the simple reason we need more funding and more money allocated to allow more people to do it. Because anybody that's involved in the program has nothing but really positive things to say about it. We need to make sure we get more people in and sampling our culture, and vice versa, going out and getting different experiences in different countries and bringing that back to ourselves as well.
Even speaking to people, I've been getting a lot of feedback that the actual projects are very, very hard to apply for.
Yeah.
And that's definitely a huge issue. But my question is, were you familiar with Twilight Community Group before today, and what do you think of?
Absolutely, it was, and I know your chairperson, Martin Brennan, very, very well. And I suppose I first came across Twilight in my term as mayor, or maybe even just the year before I became mayor. And Murty had done a phenomenal amount of work in terms of twinning with various different cities. I know Bamberg in Poland and various different cities around the place. But I think the international conference was held in Kilkenny a number of years ago, I think 2019, and I was mayor, and Murty had invited me to come to the official opening of it. So I'm very familiar with the work that Murty does on the ground and the Twilight team, and I just think it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, the spirit of volunteerism, the integration, the heritage, the culture, I just think it's absolutely fantastic. And I think we all need to embrace everybody and everybody's backgrounds. I think Murty's done a sterling job. And if you mention Twilight to anybody in Kilkenny, first name to come into your head is Murty Brennan or Martin Brennan or whatever. And he's a fantastic ambassador for Twilight, for Kilkenny, for Ireland, and for every single country that he's associated with. So he's a fantastic man.
Great. And now, since your nickname is Chap,
Yeah.
meaning you're so young,
Yeah.
what is your insight on youth development?
Yeah, well, I'm a huge. I'm very passionate about youth development. Number one, because I have actually, and this is being selfish, I have actually 4 daughters coming through myself. So I have a 14, 12, 10, and 8. So in terms of youth development, in terms of things like Crinnion and Og, in terms of getting young people involved in politics early, and having their say, I'm a huge promoter and advocate of the student voice and the youth voice. I've experienced it at my role as Kilkenny Carlow to be as chairperson, and I see, for example, things like the student council in schools and the impact that can have, and the student voice being heard. So young people, for me, I think we need to even empower them to have more of a voice. I mean, one of the things I would love to see at the moment, the eligible age to vote is 18. I'd love to see that come back maybe to 17 for a trial and then maybe back to 16. I think young people need to have a bigger say and a bigger voice in democracy. We see an awful lot of things at the moment where gender balance, that a certain percentage of candidates in local elections and national elections need to be female. Well, I would go on further and say that there should be a certain percentage of candidates would need to be maybe under the age of 30 or under the age of 25 to have that student voice. So whilst a lot of people talk about the importance of the younger person, I think we need to actually go a little bit step further and actually really get those people involved and make sure that their voice is heard when it comes to making policy and shaping policy and making decisions, whether it be at local level in Kilkenny, or whether it be at a national level or an international level. I think we need to encourage that young voice and that young person to get involved in every single policy and every single decision making, because they're going to be around longer than anybody to either benefit from it or suffer the consequences of it if it's not a positive thing.
Of course, in Kilkenny we have Corlan and Og, but looking at various towns over Europe, they have a system where there's a student council in taking direct kind of part in the process making of every town's decision making. So I was wondering if you would be looking forward to seeing something like that in Kilkenny, strictly based with local politics and with the local county council.
Yeah, absolutely. I as I said to you, I'm a firm believer in that Kilkenny County Council is of the people and for the people and needs to be representative of all the people. And again, when I say that, I'm talking about rural councillors like myself, I'm talking about councillors from the town, I'm talking about young councillors, and I'm talking about the older councillors. We've got an incredible age action group in Kilkenny for the older voice to be heard. But in addition to that, I mean, my party, Fianna Fáil, have set up recently a migrants network. Where people that are members of the party that are not, of a traditional Fianna Fáil, the Fianna Fáil family will say as such, that they're getting involved in shaping policy at a national level. We actually have 3 immigrant councillors for Fianna Fáil across the country. We have a chap in Limerick, we have a guy in Fingal, and we've a girl, Councillor Remy Uliemi, who was actually the mayor of Longford, and it's absolutely fantastic. So, I mean, it's. Again, local politics, national politics needs to be inclusive, needs to have people of all backgrounds, male, female, young, old, Kilkenny City, Skioch, Ukrainian, Polish, it doesn't matter. We need to get a cross party, cross spectrum, and let the people have their choice and make sure that's representative of everybody in the community, not just, the farmer or the lad in the town. We need to make sure everybody has their voice heard.
And finally, what is your insight on Kilkenny's partnership progress with its many twin towns?
Yeah, so Kilkenny, obviously, traditionally would have been Moray-sur-Long in France, would have been the main twinning. And we've also got Kilkenny in Minnesota in America, and obviously Marburg you'd be very familiar with it as well. But from a Kilkenny perspective, we're always on the lookout to see, are there partner cities across Europe and actually even further afield globally that share the same cultural links, heritage links, historical links, and try and build partnerships with all these different places to try and, I suppose, have an economic growth, but also to make sure that, from an integration perspective, that we can learn. I'll give you an example. I went over to Italy last year, and it was or when I was mayor, and we had an absolutely fantastic trip over in Italy, which was amazing. But the Italian people came back over to Ireland and they came to the Savour Food Festival. And they're now looking at doing a Savour Food Festival themselves over in Italy. So little things like that you can share experiences, you can learn from one another, and bring it back then and get the cultural side, and try and make sure that your own local area benefits from these twinning arrangements. And it's brilliant to have. It's such a powerful thing, to have as many like-minded twinning, in terms of size and scale, etc. You need to make sure that it's like for like. But I'm a huge promoter of twinning, and I think, there's so many opportunities out there to twin with even bigger and more areas around the country. From a European perspective and an international perspective.
Great, thank you very much for your time, Chap. It's been amazing to hear some of your personal and more professional experiences.
Yeah, Alex, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Nicholas Lesniak, Twilight Community Group, Twilight Studio 10. Thank you very much for watching.